team leader interview. And the participants in this project were Aleonya Hunter, Jackie Cunningham, Jared Jesske, Jennifer Herron, and Jordan Bauer at the University of Colorado, Denver in Professor Dioun's class. We had the opportunity to interview the owners of the O2 Group, which is a company that specializes in web design and live events that was founded in 2004. Jamie and Mike Sitzman are a husband and wife team that own the company. We also interviewed one direct report, Chase Miller. Our findings for the O2 employees and the work environment is that there are now only 5 employees. The peak of 11 employees was in the year 2013 to 2014. The business was affected by COVID, and now they are down to 5 employees. Jamie has one direct report. They do not keep track of sick time or PTO. They are organic and flat structure to work environment. No job is too big or too small for their company, and that is the message that they convey to their employees. Jamie's communication and management style. While we did have the opportunity to interview both Mike and Jamie, we focused primarily on Jamie and her style of leadership and management, as well as communication. Jamie's one big focus that she conveyed was that empowerment of her employees was very important. Trusting her employees to do the right thing, opening lines of communication to give and receive feedback in a constructive way. With a small company, you must clearly convey that no job is too big or too small. Work to create a team setting, and also how to get the most from each person's strengths and weaknesses. Her style of management appears to be affiliative, with the ability to utilize other styles of management when necessary. She has developed a level of trust with her employees. They hold regular team building exercises, such as attending Rockies games, etc., to build camaraderie with employees. Jamie does have a tendency to compartmentalize empathy on the business side versus on the personal side. She needs to know that individuals having personal issues to modulate her response. And now we will go on to the emotional intelligence part of our project.
So prior to our interview, we had Jamie take the emotional intelligence assessment as well as the Big 5 personality test. Our findings with the emotional intelligence assessment was her overall score was a 63 out of 100, which according to them is good. But there are 4 components of emotional intelligence. The first being self-awareness, which means to know your strengths, weaknesses, emotions, and how they affect performance. Jamie scored relatively high with a score of 18 out of 25. The second component of emotional intelligence is self-management, meaning the emotional awareness, management, and adaptability. This was a lower score, 14 out of 25. The third component is social awareness, which is the ability to recognize others' emotions and to practice empathy. She scored 17 out of 25, which is again a moderate to high level. And the last component of emotional intelligence is relationship management, which is the ability to inspire, motivate, and mentor others, as well as to resolve conflict. This again was a lower score, 14 out of 25. Key takeaway from the emotional intelligence assessment with Jamie was that there's certainly room for improvement and growth, specifically monitoring her emotional response to disagreements and developing a more practical strategy for conflict management. So on to the Big 5 personality test. Here we show her results in graph form. So the Big 5 can be categorized as OCEAN for short. The first being openness, meaning you're curious, original, intellectual, creative, and you're open to ideas. She scored in the 38th percentile, which is a low to moderate level. The C of OCEAN stands for conscientiousness, which is being organized, systematic, punctual, achievement-oriented, and dependable. She scored rather high on this in a 67th percentile. Extroversion is being outgoing, talkative, sociable, and enjoying social situations. Again, pretty high. She scored in the 63rd percentile. Agreeableness, being affable, tolerant, sensitive, trusting, kind, and warm. This was a lower score for Jamie, scoring in the 38th percentile. And lastly, neuroticism is being anxious, irritable, temperamental, and moody. And this was a relatively high score for Jamie, scoring in the 67th percentile. So in terms of the assessments and utilizing them at O2, they actually don't use any sort of personality test or emotional intelligence assessments. Jamie was actually not surprised by her results. She expected to get results kind of right in the middle. But they both have previous experience as a manager giving them and as an employee taking them. So as an employee, they feel like management's trying to change you or trying to conform you to be a certain way, or you're possibly getting a promotion and they want to evaluate you. But as management, they view it to help to understand employees' strengths and weaknesses. It helps to lessen miscommunication, and it can encourage growth in their employees.
This section is discussing some of their strategic focus and their organizational design. So when they began as a company, their intent was really to, in their words, control their own destiny and control their work-life balance. Currently, their focus has shifted where they're primarily focused on reaching retirement, keeping the company steady up until that point, versus trying to actually grow the company. And we'll talk about that a little bit more further on. Their business is generally organized into the website and the event side, and they kind of have different cultures and different requirements. Due to the team size, there's a major need to be adaptive, to take a cross-functional approach to roles and responsibilities. Like Jennifer mentioned, there's a certain pool of collective tasks that everybody needs to be responsible for, and that's consistent with a boundaryless organizational structure. This can cause conflict around shared responsibilities beyond people's day jobs, especially if it creates a perception that one coworker is working harder than others, which can lead to some feelings of unfairness. The environment is treated more like a family than a group of employees. There are highly variable dynamics, so I think the small team size makes it so that you don't need to have as many rigid processes in place. They're still developing a strategy for transitioning the business to the employees, and they don't have an exit strategy yet. In terms of their leadership principles and theories, Jamie and Mike play to each other's strengths. Jamie's less interested in the C-level leadership courses and concepts. She views herself more as a de facto leader and more of a project manager, so she relies on Mike for a lot of the personality management and conflict resolution. She's more of a nose to the grindstone type attitude. But both of them value a team-oriented mindset. They encourage employees to strengthen each other's weaknesses and build confidence, which is something they practice themselves. And they do not micromanage employee schedules. And like I mentioned, they can avoid that because of the team size. Their biggest value is honesty and taking responsibility for mistakes. One recommendation from Mike was that he felt that peer-to-peer mentoring is essential for an entrepreneur or somebody leading a company. And he mentioned leads groups among different C-level company leaders. Both of them said that negative feedback is not very common in their company, and it's more often conflict over business decisions. And they generally resolve that by explaining the business case to the employee. They felt that they're constantly needing to adapt their leadership style because they don't delegate any management responsibilities. They also identified social media as a challenge for management, because sometimes it's tough to differentiate between an information source, which they called business media, versus social media. As a company that has a large software development component, they demonstrate a lot of agile business principles like small cross-functional teams, distributed decision-making, informal communication, experimental iterative approach. They emphasize empowerment and decision-making by their employees. And they use the phrase that they're willing to fail if it means getting their employees to commit to an idea. So a lot of this is considered with consistent with Agile practices.
When it comes to Jamie's key points to motivation and confidence and how they instill that into their team, they talked about how if someone is struggling, they make it a point for the whole team to pick that person up and not just solely based on the management side of things. In one part of the interview, she mentioned, "We are only as good as the weakest link." They empower their team to make their best decisions and commit to that decision that they are making. And by doing that, they're allowing their team to take ownership, take risks, and development opportunities. They put trust in their people to get their work done and have pride in what they are doing and what they are committing to do. As Jordan had stated before, there is no micromanaging, and that allows for the team members to voice their ideas and allow them to express themselves because they are just as important as Mike and Jamie's ideas as well. They make sure that the team does have a healthy work-life balance, just like they are wanting to have as well. Their work-life balance approach is they do not have set office hours. The team is allowed, if they have something to take care of, they can take care of it as long as they are getting their work done in a timely and efficient manner to the highest quality. Employees have flexibility to do what they need, and that includes work from home opportunities. Like if an employee is sick, they can work from home. If the weather is bad, they can work from home.
Alrighty, now we're going to transition to goals. Due to the nature of the situation that the O2 group is in, the personal goals kind of align with the company goals. As you can see from the first bullet point, the company signed a 3-year lease and they want to use that time to successfully wind down. Moving on to the second bullet point, they're constantly encouraging continuing technical education. They give their employees latitude to determine what business skills they want to develop, and they allow them to pursue those. One key example was an annual developer conference that the direct report Chase attends each year. Our third main bullet point on the slide hits on the long-term plans. Chase noted that there could be potential for him to continue running the business. However, he also discussed his lack of sales skills with us. His expertise really lies on the web development side, so he would need to identify a sales talent that could also handle the in-person event activities, or he could work on developing those skills himself. Go ahead, Jordan, switch it. And then our next slide touches on what our leader has learned and general advice that was imparted on our group. Something that stood out to us was a common theme that Mike and Jamie learned through hiring, and that is the shared trait of having played college athletics. This experience, in their opinion, has provided their candidates with skills learned through athletics such as teamwork, how to face adversity, working towards a common goal, and managing inter-team dynamics. The second learning that was shared with us was how Mike and Jamie handle decision-making in their small business. When shooting down ideas, they found it best to present it from the business owner point of view versus a boss making an authoritative decision. Mike used the quote, "It's not a bad idea, but it's just not in our business model." This helped the employees feel a sense of ownership in the decision-making process. And the last bullet point relates to handling emotions in the workplace. Jamie has found in her experience that bottling up emotions has led to more consequences than if the emotions were openly shared. So then moving on to general advice for the group, our first bullet point was emphasized multiple times throughout the interview, and that is that they empower employees to make decisions and want them to own them. The second piece of advice covers issues that may arise while managing people. Due to the nature of their business and its ties to social media, they have ran into issues drawing the line between what is work social media and what is personal social media. Due to the nature of the small team, many of the clients are personally connected on social media to employees working on their projects. So things like politically motivated posts or other controversial topics have sometimes kind of spilled over between the two, and there's a fuzzy line. And from my personal experience, I know that my company has put in place a code of conduct that includes social media. And then last but not least, Mike told us his philosophy about motivating people in 2 words, and those 2 words were money talks. This is contrary to what we learned in The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. We do note that not all of the business is creative work, and there is some manual labor tied to the event setup, teardown. So again, it may not be completely contrary, but that was his style that he shared with us. With that, I'll pass it back for the direct report thoughts.
When it came to speaking with Chase in his interview, his final thoughts that we concluded was Chase had identified a project that he had been working on in his hometown, had made a visible impact on the quality of his life. He enjoys autonomy of the O2 group compared to previous employers that he has worked for. He believes that communication is a two-way street, so he thinks that Jamie and Mike communicating with him, and he should communicate with them as well, is very helpful. O2 does have an informal structure, which allows people who are not the best communicators, but they are really good at solving the problems. Lastly, he feels that there is a frequent cross-functional work due to small team size, meaning he's a jack of all trades. So one thing, he is forklift certified, which you do not see a lot in other companies, which we all found very cool because you don't see that a lot.
Alrighty, moving on to the summary slides here that wrap up everything in a few key takeaways. First, we note the unique situation that our business owners are in. While most businesses are continuously growing, the O2 group here is thoughtfully winding down their practice. As I discussed in my earlier slide, Chase may be part of the exit strategy. However, it's still up in the air. On the leadership skills and styles section, we identified Jamie as a mostly affiliative leader, but she can be adaptable to different situations. While comments about her leadership style included nose to the grindstone, which can be assumed to be closer to a pace setter. She also mentioned family days at Rockies games with the team, which showed more of her people first affiliative style. Moving on to the personality test, we found it interesting how management knew the rationale for using tools like personality tests, but we also found it interesting again that they did not utilize them in their business. On the next bullet point, we enjoyed how Chase took the time to discuss the company atmosphere that he was looking for during his last job transition. He noted how the O2 group provided an alternative to the bureaucratic world of his larger previous employers. And then this flows right into the next bullet point on the challenges and benefits of working in a small company. While there are flexible work arrangements, there can also be a lack of defined responsibilities. For example, as we discussed on the last slide, forklift certification is probably not on most web developers' resumes. And then as we wrap everything up into a final thought, that thought is managers need to stay adaptable and flexible in an ever-changing work environment. I'm sure when Mike and Jamie first entered the managerial world, they would not have thought of the social media challenges they would have faced in managing their employees. And I'm sure as we start to enter the managerial world, we will encounter some of the same issues.